Everybody, welcome and welcome back to the Conscious Spirit Podcast. I'm Mari-Lyn and I'm talking recovery. The strangest thing happened last night. Watching TV, sitting here in my living room, and it's, I don't know, about 8:45. And so the sun is going down and it's time to close the uh, windows up, pull the shades. And I started to get out of my chair and I had this instant memory of getting up and going to pour a brandy. And that just absolutely floored me that was it. I don't even know what to say about it. It was the motion of getting up in the middle of watching some show. I don't even remember what we were watching. But there was like this instinct of, I'm getting up, I'm going to go pour myself a brandy. And for about that long, it kind of sounded like a good idea. It was absolutely crazy making. And if any of you have seen me before on here, you know I've been sober for uh 15 years. Over 15 years. And the first thing out of my mouth was, wow, that was a weird thought I just had. My husband says, well, what's that? And I said, pouring a brandy. Yeah, that is a weird thought, he says. I always try to make it a point when I have those kind of weird things that I speak them out loud and I let him know. Sometimes it makes him really uncomfortable. And yet he is always really grateful that I do that because he knows, um, just through life experience, of how easy a relapse can be. Relapse, thankfully, with drinking is not part of my story. I have to say yet, because who knows? I got a lot of life. I have a lot of life ahead of me, I think. And relapse is always a possibility. And yet I do what I can to keep myself safe from that happening. And one of those things is to speak when weird things happen, like that thought last night. So strange. There's been a number of things over the past, I don't know, probably 3 to 6 months that have sparked, I'm going to say, a desire to drink, even though that desire is minimal. It's really infinitesimal, if that's the word. Excuse me. I went to a new hair salon and I walk in, I get checked in, I sit down. The gal at the desk asks me, can I get you anything? Can I get you something to drink? And I said, no, I'm fine, thank you. And she said, a glass of wine? And when she said it, I mean, I instantly said no, but what I could taste was a cold, crisp rosé. And then a Chardonnay. And then I've never liked, I was not a wine person, but I forced myself to learn to drink it because you know, wine was easier to get sometimes than the hard stuff. You go to someone's house and they have wine. So of course, I'm not going to turn down the wine. But when she said that, it was like, and I thought, I'm here. Nobody knows me. Nobody knows that I'm an alcoholic. I wonder if I could. Could I just have one glass of wine and it not affect me and not affect my sobriety? Oh, yeah, this whole story played in my head. I don't know that I was completely honest with my husband about that one. I did tell him about it, but I don't know that I shared that piece of my brain going, could I do it? Could I get away with it? Could I have a glass of wine and it not affect me? Luckily for me, I have a good rememberer because I remember what alcohol did to me. I remember the grab that it would have on the inside of my heart, how it would squeeze from the inside, right? So imagine like a hand coming in through my back, squeezing my heart, creating anger, creating doubt. And there was nothing good about it. Very rarely did it ever create a relaxation. I would romanticize that alcohol would create relaxation. I would get this whole big scenario like with my first sip of whatever it was. And there would be this and I would relax and I would feel good. But most of the time that was false. That was my body making up a story. Bottom line, making up a story. It was fictional. Um, no relief in there, no real relaxation. And what I remember most, is the end of the drinking, the rage, the blackouts, the screaming. And I don't want to live that way. I don't want my husband to have to live that way. Fairly safe to say if I were to go back to drinking, I may not have a husband anymore. And not that I could say, excuse me, that I blamed him. I guess the message today is really one of the stories that we tell ourselves. Uh, I sitting at that salon and she offers me wine and I tried to tell myself a story of maybe you could drink that wine and maybe you would be okay and maybe it wouldn't affect you. Maybe nobody would know. Well, that's not true. I would know. There's no way it would not have affected me. Uh, but then the stories that I told myself even when I was drinking were so self-limiting, so self-destructive. Anti-self really is what the verbiage that would come out of my brain, out of my mouth, and talking to myself. And we learn so well how to tell story, how to do that anti-self-talk to ourselves. I guess that's why it's anti-self-talk, because it is to ourselves. And we do it out loud and we do it in our heads and we do it through actions. once we remove the addiction from the scenario, from the situation, that doesn't change all of that anti-self bullshit. It is absolutely necessary for us to be able to recognize it, to see it, to really find out why we're doing it, when we started it, how it all came to be, and then to start healing, and then to change those words and those actions. What I've learned through life and through recovery is changing that speak, that negative self-talk, those negative self-actions. Changing them isn't one and done. It's not easy to change them. And it's been in my experience anyway, that it's very easy to pull them back. Pam and I just did a podcast where we talked a little bit, if I remember correctly, about vibration and how low vibration is so dense and it's easy to hold on to, and it's easy to get in there and wallow and grab on and hold on. And anti-self-talk is a low vibration, and it's easy. It's easy to grab onto it and to allow ourselves to get sticky with it. High vibration, it's like a cloud. How do you catch a cloud? How do you hold on to a cloud? How do you hold on to air? It's like you can't even see air. Sunlight. Have you ever tried to grab a beam of light? You can't hold on to it. Stick your hand down in the mud and you can pull up a big old handful of it. And you can carry it. You can smear it all over yourself. Most of it's going to stick. Energy is the same way. That low vibration, it sticks to us. And so it's not as easy as sometimes we might make it sound to stop doing these self-defeating things, these anti-self things. Addiction is a very low vibration, and it takes a lot of work and a lot of reaching for a higher vibration to stay above it. And I think that's what I've been able to do. I have been able to stay above the vibration of my addiction. But it's not always easy. And it's not for lack of my ego trying to pull me back, just like last night. Something about the way I was getting out of my chair, or the time of day, or the whole thing. And I thought, oh, I should go pour a brandy. Well, first of all, there is no brandy in my house. I'd like to say there is no alcohol in my house, but there is. And I think I know where it is. And going to it, not an option. Just not going to happen. Over the years, I have told my husband, I know where this is, and I'm asking you to go put it somewhere where I don't know. And typically you know, he'll go to the garage and he'll sometimes make it sound like a door's opening. So I don't know, you know, is it in the trailer? Is it in the garage? Well, I'm not going to go hunting for it. So, you know, there is that. Um, but whoo-wee, that was weird having that thought. So I talked about last night, I talked about the wine offering at the hair salon. And then there's a couple of other times throughout, gosh, probably the last 3 months or more, where I have just been in a particular vibration, mood, anti-mood, I don't know what you want to call it, where I've thought of drinking. I've thought, God, I could just go to the liquor store. I'm going to be at the grocery store. I could get, I'd get this far. I could pick up some wine or some beer and, ugh, gross. No. Now, when I'd have the thought of going to the liquor store, I would not stop myself because of what I was going to taste. Beer or wine, I'd always go, I could get beer, I could get wine. Ugh, gross. No, out of my head. But when the liquor store would come into my mind, what I would play was the end of the drunk, the rage, the waking up still in the chair with a brandy glass in my hand and going, oh, guzzle it down, get up, go pour another one so I could sit down, fall asleep, pass out, whatever you want to call it, wake up. Oh, so insane. Absolute insanity. That's where I go to. My brain will go to remembering what happens when I drink. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that I do remember. And I know that that is paramount in me staying sober. But also, what is paramount in me staying sober is healing. And with healing, you get to look at all the childhood crap and you get to recognize it for what it is and you get to let go of resentment. Letting go of resentment isn't as easy as all that either. Even energetically, with a healing, when we release resentment, we still have that whole thought process, that perspective that we need to work on actually changing. And it's not always easy because with resentment comes the false idea of responsibility. So if we can resent someone for something they did, which resulted in us doing something, that resentment acts as a buffer to our own responsibility. When we can take honest responsibility for all of our actions, all of our decisions, I am told right now that there is freedom to be found. So clearly, Clearly, I have not done this. Clearly, I am holding on to a resentment or two. Mm. That is keeping me at a lower vibration, which is why I've been thinking of alcohol off and on for the past months. Personal responsibility. It doesn't matter what the situation is. I want to be really careful here because I am not talking about being a victim of a crime. I'm not talking about being a victim of an attack. Although there is an area of responsibility that we need to take down the road, as far as healing and um, learning to trust and forgive mostly ourselves. But this is a whole other story, and I am not talking about being a victim of a crime, of an attack, an assault, of anything like that. I'm not talking about those scenarios. I want to be really clear about that. But in our decisions through our lives, even the decisions that we make as teenagers that we try to blame our parents for. Um, case in point. I discovered today I still resent my parents for making me go to college. My best friend at the time convinced me to go to a small out of town college. That's where she was going. She had it all laid out and she convinced me to go. And so my dad, he worked with me and we got student loans and we got things figured out. And I did the application and I got my acceptance letter. And when I called to tell her, she says, "Oh, I'm not going there." I was devastated. I didn't want to go. And the only reason I was going to college in the first place was her. And my parents made me toe the line. I made the decision to go. I'm going. I regret that. I resent that. And I made some really bad choices that year. The only year of college I went, made some bad choices. Some of them around alcohol. No surprise there. Whew. But this resentment is something I have to work out. I have to take responsibility for, number one, making the choice to go solely based on another person. And then making the decision to accepting that I allowed my parents to basically force me into going, but then to accept all of the decisions that I made, the decisions I made when I was living on that campus. I can't blame anyone else for those choices. I mean, I could try. That was, holy crap, 34 years ago. No, That was 45 years ago. That was 45 years ago. And because I still hold a resentment today, 45 years later, I find it difficult to reach a vibration of freedom. So, forgiveness of a situation is a critical thing in resolving resentment. Yeah. Resentment keeps our vibrations so low. Mm, yeah. I'm going to say I am a little bit surprised that I didn't realize that I carried that resentment. Hmm. It's funny when we start watching people close to us approaching scenarios that we had in our youth. Mainly my great niece, she'll be a senior in high school next year. And yeah, the talks have begun. What are you going to do? Are you going to go to college? What are your plans? And that's really had me looking back at life and the choices I made that led me right into the bottom of that bottle. And while sure, I can blame this on this person and that on that person, and I can blame my parents, I can resent my parents, but I made the choices. I have to own my choices. What was there? There was this saying that I had heard on a show. It was something to the effect of adulting is owning your choices instead of wallowing in self-pity. Hmm. And wallowing in self-pity is exactly what we do when we hold on to a resentment. Because if that person had done something different, if they'd have been different, I'd have done something different. Hmm. Yeah, that doesn't hold any water anymore. I could have done different. Absolutely. I could have done different. Um, so owning our choices, owning the path that we've taken, forgiving the other people, forgiving ourselves, and forgiving situations. Um, so I guess to wrap this up for today, if you find yourself struggling at all in recovery in your addiction, Looking at resentments might be a place to start. Looking at how much personal responsibility are you taking? Um, are you taking ownership of yourself? Are you taking ownership of your choices that you made throughout your life? And are you giving yourself the opportunity to be at a higher vibration? Are you giving yourself the opportunity to be free of those resentments, of those blame games, of those denials? Yeah, good place to start. So there it is. That's my spiel. Um, Personal responsibility, forgiveness, forgiveness of the situation, forgiving yourself, even forgiving other people. You know, most people aren't doing what they do to hurt us. They're doing the best that they can because they're living in their wounding just like we are. And we don't know what we don't know. All right, everybody. If you'd like to know more about TCS, our website is tcseverydaypsychics.com. You can reach out through that on the contact us form. Please like, subscribe, share. Would love to know your comments. If you are in recovery or want to be in recovery, let me know. I'd love to know who's watching this and if any of this resonated for you. If it's something that you can start putting into practice in those times when you feel like you're hovering pretty low to that vibration of addiction. Thanks for letting me be part of your day. Take care, everybody. Bye.